If somebody's there, and then I'll explain what's going on. Like, is that 30 seconds?
You'll have to cut Ellie off. She'll just keep talking. Oh, you heard that. Still mad.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, I want to get started here. I don't know how long this will take. Tonight it's a little unusual because of our setup here in the room that we're in. We can't have you talk. The reverb would be too big and it'd come back and it'd scream and nobody would be able to hear anybody. And that's why you're muted. But if you can see the screen okay, you'll be able to see that anything that you want to chat to us, you can ask questions, whatever. I don't know, Susan, did you hear Randy when he was talking at all? I might have to be off of this one here. That's the only thing. I should go see. No, I can't. Not enough time. Otherwise, I'd say what we could do is if somebody has something we said. But we'll read it off of there. I'll bring it up here. If you have something, a question to ask anybody. But first thing we better talk about, number one, you can certainly take your mask off in here as long as we're keeping the social distance. That should help people with everything, with social distance, and so they can be heard. I ask everybody else to speak loudly or kind of move over here a little bit, because this little ball is what has to pick you all up when we talk. And by doing that, they can hear, even though they can't reply. I know we have somebody trying to get in. I'm not sure if they'll be able to or not. They might be going by Rocky Mountain time because they're headed out that way. They're out Mount Rushmore trying to get into this meeting tonight. I appreciate everybody coming here tonight. This is called the COVID Advisory Committee. And what we do is take a look at things that we're proposing for you. We need your opinion, your input. We had a board briefing that we invited people in, some excellent information, excellent feedback. You'll see we incorporated that in, and I've already shared the last PowerPoint. We collected more data from people, and we put that in there. I asked our families that have kids that are enrolled here to make a comment, whether they were going to be in-person, distance learning, homeschooling, or move to another place. The number of people replying is the most I've ever had. I'll tell you right now, we are like the envy. Nobody can get the response like you people here have. And I want to compliment everybody on that. The objective on this group is to hone things down a little bit. We had our professionals working on stuff all summer. Teachers worked on things with the principals. And then they were reading things. You have no idea how much reading there is for anybody. And they put together different things. And this eventually at our board meeting on the 24th, we need to approve it. And this committee will need to recommend it. So we'll have another one of these next week. I hope more people can make it, but it is what it is. From this committee, we have to also have a board member, a student on the committee, a teacher, and a number of different groups, principals obviously, and me, on what was being called a response team, but they changed that name so it wouldn't be confused with the county response or the region response team. And that one, if you're interested, be on it. We can't have so many. But this is the team that will sit down with the data, look at the recommendation, and bring it to the board up and down if we have to change. We still have to follow things, but there's some personal data to be there, and I'll get there at the time. So welcome, thank you for coming. Slide. Susan Leonard, by the way, is doing the chat and running the computer. So I've gone through this before. We know there are the three scenarios: in-person with blended distance learning, hybrid, where it's 50% capacity, but that doesn't mean 50% capacity of the room. What really determines it, we must fully social distance. And that is a big difference when we're talking about rooms. So, for example, some of our classrooms could take 45 to 50 kids in it. That's packed. So 50% would be 25, but when we social distance, it's more like 12 to 15. And then distant blended learning, that's where we're communicating more. Next slide, please. The steps for the protocol of where we are, it goes through it, the county information, but we're in multiple counties. And the other county is Benton. And then our other neighbor, we have only a few in, but we have quite a few people in Benton. Matter of fact, I know one board member lives in Benton County, and I could be a couple more. Stearns County is the other one, but we don't have as many students from there. So we have to collect data from them. But it's based on our local numbers. What's going on here? So let's say, I'm just going to pick a town I know, let's say Sauk Rapids. They have an outbreak there. Yeah, they're the high county, but at the same time, when we look at what they're doing, that's kind of contained in one county. What our county person shared with us as superintendents is that they can hone it down to tell us exactly where the outbreak is. And literally, doing his job as the health director, he has been able to see how this has moved around our county. We are very fortunate that we're rural, so there isn't as much mixing. The region rapid response team, that's there to help us. That's been clarified more today than I've heard it ever. And that is housed in Sourcewell up in Staples. That's a cohort buying group that has really helped us out across our area, our region. Region 5 is what we're in, of sharing things. It's been outstanding, and they will help collect some of that data, share it with us, and give us as much information as they can. They have 2 epidemiologists that are going to work with them, and if you don't know what that is, those are people that specialize in disease and the spread of disease and how to cure it, how to take care of it. So part of that is on that committee there. And then I called that the local response team. How new the new term is, I can't even remember it because I got so much running in my mind. But that's what this team will be that sits down. And we work with all of them together to make a decision to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. If we're going to open tomorrow, we'd be in person, no doubt. What was put out originally from the state was 3.7 something, and I think we are at 1.92. And why it's less is because a number of those cases are no longer active. Next slide, please. Any questions while she's bringing up the next slide?
Hey, John, question. So this group is not that local response. We're kind of more helping make a recommendation for the board to then
correct
or not.
Yeah, this committee is on different things.
Yep.
You know, so we'll bring things to you to approve or not approve.
That other response team might be a subset of these people.
Correct.
Or it might not be.
It should be a subset of the people in this because they have a broader sense of knowledge as we get going.
Thank you.
Where what we're trying to do is put things out in our public. You saw that last night and other things we've shared, and you've been getting feedback. That's why it's so important here. That's just repeated what I said. Would you go to the next one, please? And this is how they decide what each school will be doing. And I say each school, that is our elementary and our secondary. It's also what everyone is determined around. What it is when it says 0 to 9, how many individuals have it per 10,000 people? How many is it? And in Morrison County, we have 33,000 plus people. So you can see why the number is so down. I've been watching, I've been tracking it since the start. Right now, I think the state had 7 more, and Morrison County hasn't gone up in days, which is all good news. If we raise up to a 10 to 19 level, then what would happen is the secondary would be advised, depending on where everything is. Remember, it comes back to the local setting. It doesn't go through the whole county, and that's very important. It would come back to what used to be the response team. I'll think of it here in a minute, and we would discuss it. Well, where were these outbreaks? If it happened to be right here in Royalton, that would be a problem. And then we'd have to talk about it. But the key is the high school at that second number would be in hybrid. Excuse me, coffee during these times is not a good thing. And the elementary would stay in the other format, which is in person. If we went to 20 to 29, then what would happen is the elementary students would go into, I think I got that right. Yeah. They stay where they are. I already hit that one. Now we go to the next one, right? And it's 30 to 49, hybrid learning for elementary students, distance learning now is at the high school. And then finally we get to 50 plus, we're all in there. But that's pretty high. That would be a lot of turnover, and again, I come back locally for us. Any questions on that? And I'll continue to go through this with people, and when people don't understand, we want to. Yes, Randy.
So like when this first started, the majority of the cases came from cruise ships. So if we were able to see that, I mean, let's say a family of 6 or 8, you know, went somewhere on a trip and came back and they got it, but they've managed to distance themselves from everybody else. I don't see that would affect us. Is that the idea of this?
Yeah, that is the idea. So everything comes back down. What's going on here? It's not what's going on in the whole county. I'll use Little Falls. If they have an outbreak there, it doesn't affect us. You know, why? It's isolated there. That's how it kind of works. To work its way out and to spread exponentially. That's the real problem. Good question, Randy. Anybody else have a question? Next slide, please. I'll always go back. Our first line is the parents and the guardians of our students. That becomes very, very important in how you handle things. Every day in our schools, we have students come in that are running fevers. We know because they tell us somebody gave them some Tylenol to bring down the fever. Well, this is not the time to do it unless you want to see us go into distance learning fully, because that's how it spreads. And I want to say that again. And there's going to be a new one based on what we heard the other night. Go ahead, next one, please. The more you do those things, the better. Fauci today came out and said it's too late for temperature taking. So I imagine that will disappear off that chart, and that's something I've been an advocate for a long time, because that's one of the last ones that comes out, but I did not have a chance. And matter of fact, the director in Morrison County, myself, over 6 weeks ago, said I don't know why they're still taking temperature. All right, and those are some of the other ones, but we'll put together a list, and one of our nurses will have a list for parents to check. But you know better than us. And what the rule is, if they have a couple of these, keep them home. Don't bring it back to school to spread out more and close this. Keep it at home. And you know what? If it is just a cold, those things will disappear. Gone.
As far as the screening goes, you're looking for a form that all parents sign, and then they would be able to do it on Skyward. That is the direction that we are capable of having parents screen their child at home and put the data in Skyward. That is already set up. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll talk more because we still are waiting for a little more direction on that. What she's talking about is one of the next slides you're going to see. Yes, Scott.
One thing that crosses my mind in this is probably some common sense, I'd call it. So headaches.
Yeah.
I'm a lifelong sufferer of headaches. My son is. So I think part of it has to be, if you know your kid has this pre-existing condition, then you're going to have to take that into consideration and probably make sure the school nurse knows it too, so that we don't have a panic attack. Because I get it when I'm stressed, he gets it when they're stressed, that's what happens. And so I think that's one thing where some of this has to be, we have to be very sensitive, but yet practical.
And that's also exactly as a parent. But if in doubt, keep them home for a day. You know, the direction for our principals in our schools is we've got to be a little more liberal on where the cutoff point is. The county's certainly aware of it, and they're not going to have as high a standard as before for saying that the student has gone excessively. Yeah, and when you see a couple of, but let's say they're running a fever.
Yeah, that
was an automatic.
Yep.
Are they having a lot of coughing that you notice, that different
Yep.
kind of coughing? That would be another one.
Yep.
Do they come home and you can see the rings under their eyes?
Right. I
You
agree.
know, those are all good ones to look at. Sore throat, what happened today, you know? So there's some of that, but if in doubt, the best thing you can do is stay at home. Questions from anybody in the crowd? All right, next one, please.
Oh, John, I have a couple
Go ahead.
thoughts on that. Okay, so as a parent, sometimes it feels like when you call in and your kid's sick, like that's not acceptable, or like they're not sick enough. So we have to try to be more accommodating to that. But the other thing is at some point a kid's going to be sick and be going to be too sick to attend virtually or distance learn that day too. So, I mean, there's going to be multiple layers of how sick you are. You know, if you get kicked down with the flu, you know, not even COVID, but if you get kicked down with the flu, you ain't learning. You ain't gonna log in on a computer, and you probably gotta think about what that looks like. You know, no, we kept him home from school because we didn't really pass the screening, or no, this kid's down and out, you know, got food poisoning last night. He ain't doing nothing but sleeping, you know. I'm just thinking about that right now. So
Yeah.
I think the connotation has to change a little. Like you said, previously, it's almost the mindset, and I know I'm probably just as guilty as anybody. My kid gets up and says, yeah, you know, I don't feel very good. It's
tough
like,
shit you're going
it's like, tough luck, you're going. You know what I mean? I think we have to get in the mindset that maybe we shouldn't do tough luck, and not maybe. We don't need to do that, right? And
in this time.
and I think it's keep him home, and maybe he's good enough to distance learn. I think maybe that's like the second question. Okay, Johnny's staying home. Is he going to be able to distance learn? Oh, he is. Okay, that's great. We'll let his teachers know. Or no, he's not. He is down and out, like you said. So I think, yeah, we have to. And I think I myself as a parent have to change that, because right, like you said, if you're sick, I mean, you got to be really sick. And now maybe it's like,
Well, it's not my fault they sat up late and ate a bag of candy I didn't know they had. You know, that's.
I think that, yeah,
Or
we
the
have to
test,
change.
or the
Yeah.
test that's coming to mind.
Yeah, or that.
Yeah.
Part of my point, you know, if they don't have a history of stomachache, and they have a stomachache, okay, pay attention.
Yep.
Maybe normally you would have sent them anyway, but now, yeah, you keep them home.
Good points. Yeah, we're gonna have to listen better, but if everyone works together, I'm really hoping, you know, we don't have to go in anything but person to person. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I should have, go back one, I didn't go over this. Yeah, so what we're going to do, and that's what Don was talking about before, is the parent or guardian is going to be in charge of the screen. You're going to be the ones that are liable. That sounds terrible, but then other choices for us to do the screen. You know, and we've discussed that before. That came up actually one of our teacher leadership team. Our teacher leadership team is there. That was an instant thing that they said, we're worried about that kid that shows the symptoms now in class and has to go down and get checked. But that's the protocol. Go ahead, next one. And that's the part I just said, that the kid will go down and get checked, but that's what we do now. If they're not feeling good, they go down. Our nurses know some of our students, because of medical conditions, just need to lay down for a while and recover. They might be back in the class. They have the data. They're the ones that get to see all the privileged information on people and then move from there. So it's the same as we use in any other disease. Some come down, I know the little types, sometimes they get running around a lot. They end up in the pre-K, they'll end up in K, they'll end up down in our office where a nurse's station is, and they'll lay down for a 10-minute nap, they're back up, they're fine, and they're back in going. And any of you that have had kids, that would be true. Next one, please. And we'll come up with more information on it. That's what I'm saying to clarify. Decision tree for symptomatic people. And this becomes very important because these are things that are put together, and we will send one out to you as parents what to follow. A problem right now, I could send one out tonight, and it might change tomorrow. That's where we are with it. And a lot of it has to do with testing and everything else. So I put down an example there. Kid has the symptoms, student gets tested, stays home until the results are available. It's positive. What do you do? Home for 14 days following positive test. The exception to that is if he's not showing any more symptoms, the doctor could write out a reason. And that's not 14 school days, that's 14 days straight. Negative test, student returns to school. End of discussion. So, and that would be multiple symptoms. Matter of fact, right now you cannot get checked unless you have multiple symptoms. Questions by anybody? Yes, Randy, your comment.
So, in your scenario where the student gets tested and the classmates stay home for 14 days to monitor for symptoms, what happens in that in-between time of a possible and a test result? Do those other kids?
Yeah, and the other kids stay there until the stuff is confirmed, and everyone's well aware. That's the protocol we're supposed to follow. So what they would do when they test them and they get results back that are positive, they go around and they ask, okay, who's been in direct contact for more than 15 minutes?
Yeah, so that 15 minutes, was that with or without a mask?
That should be with a mask, 15 minutes, that can spread.
Okay.
All right.
John, question, and I know this is just an example, I believe, right? Because so I know last night there was a question, at least in Dr. Gravata's session, about, so in this case where the student has it again and the class gets notified, right? But let's say nobody else, I mean, what's the protocol for the kids that don't necessarily have it? Is that everybody still stays home for 14 days, or is it back to this? I know other things like CDC have talked about 7 days.
Yeah, and that's what happens at the time. How many days? That's where I say it's not. Why put it out now? It is going to change.
It's possible. So will we have like something like that before school that we'd say, this is what it would look like now? Because I know that was some of the people had that.
Matter of fact, you're going to see that in a second.
Okay.
Ellie, did you have something?
On that same lines as Randy had said, that like if you come into contact with someone that's positive, I mean, I'm assuming, like you said, that'll change because I've heard now that like the classmates shouldn't have to quarantine for 14 days. Like the healthcare field now, nurse comes into contact with a positive patient, they're not quarantining until they have symptoms.
And that very well could be all I can go by is what I had last.
Because I'm just thinking, if you pull them out for 14 days in quarantine, they come back and end up with symptoms, well, then they're gonna be out for another 4, you know, I mean, realistically, they could miss 28 days just like that.
And I think I have a sheet on that, just to give you an idea. Would you go to the next one, please?
If they're quarantined, they need distance learning.
Yeah, I just throw this up. This is one for our staff to go through and take care of all of that. And then as we go down, go to the next one, please. This happens to be one. Now, I should have left the date on this one. This is one we received back on, I think it was June the 6th. To give you an idea, so things on here are not accurate. But this is the kind of thing you'll have at home for you, that you as a parent will be able to look at and go through. And like you said, there's no sense in sending that out anything now because it's going to change. And that's where some people don't understand that, is why don't you make this decision now? Other people are saying they're open and stuff. We're not supposed to until we make contact with the response team. The response team doesn't get their message till the 24th. We get it on the 25th. But the county will let us know before that. Questions? More questions? Great questions. The reason I slipped those in was exactly what you said. I know some people have been asking about that. And you can't answer. But right now, we can't answer anything. I haven't heard anything from our student here tonight. Any questions? Okay, good. Next one. Busing, we're going to skip over. It still ended up there, even though I said not. So go through the busing because we're still working on that. Right now, Phil is working for MAP. Just make sure we have MAP there. That is a paid product for us. Phil, what times are you looking at right now?
MAP will be open from 6:30 in the morning and 6:30 till 8 o'clock, and then 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock after school.
And it looks like that came through okay on the mic. I was watching the mic go up and down. So yeah, and then that'll be normal hours for math, and that's a paid program. Next slide, please, unless somebody has a question. Okay, distance learning. That doesn't always mean e-learning. We might have times when we bring kids in, but that would be in a different case right now with a hybrid. So this is very similar. What does it mean? We come in, we try to do the best we can, separated. Kids wear masks. It doesn't mean, we're going to pin them down, and our students have to wear them all the time and never take them off. Matter of fact, one of the things I know Joel talked to me about, he wants to tell teachers as many times as you can, let's get out of the building. Go for a walk outside, relax, kids, and outside is fine. There should be some break times where they can get in an area where they are well distanced and can do that. And the same, I imagine, Phil, I haven't had a chance to talk to you. Is that what you're thinking about doing too? Get them outside from time to time so they can run around. They need that. They need that. And there are some very definite protocols on kids that can't wear masks and kids that can, students that can and can't. Questions? Yes, Randy.
So if you get in a classroom environment and you have a big enough classroom and they can distance, does that mean that they can go without masks through the instructional time?
If they're asking questions and stuff, they can drop it, and ask it, but it should come back out. One of the problems we have, which is quiet. We're supposed to get direction tonight or tomorrow on quieters and bands with horns, woodwinds and horns. Because it's a little tough to play an instrument through a mask. And it spreads farther when you're yelling and screaming and everything else. So it would depend where you are, but fresh air makes a big difference. If we can get them outside, that's the best.
So that'll work until January.
Yeah, exactly. Although if you're in Duluth and it's 20 below, it's a good day.
Yep.
Next one, please. this was one of the slides I had blacked out, so go ahead and move on to the next. Modified 7-period day. I don't know, Joel, do you want to explain this? Did I write this up right?
It'll be a block schedule, A-B schedule. Periods 1, 3, 5, and 7 will be 90 minutes on day A. 2, 4, 6, and 8 on day B. We put in a royal hour on day, we had a 7-period day, and when you do the block, obviously you need 4 sections of classes each day to even it out. We added royal hour on day 5, which is a chance for students to work on schoolwork. They'll have 90 minutes every other day in school with their homeroom advisory to, if we have announcements or any kind of things like that that we need to get out to students, it'll happen through there, but it'll also be an opportunity for students to be able to get their work done. It's by you or by grade in your dialogue.
Are we gonna try to encourage some peer help on that? It'd be a wonderful time to try to get some of that synergy.
Is it gonna be by grade?
It's by grade, yeah. And then the other part of our Royal Hour students can get we call them their gold, you get a gold ticket. Hey, I need to go see Mr. Shanerock, I need some help with math, they can get a ticket from that teacher and then go to that classroom and get extra help at that time. Or I need to, hey, I was gone yesterday, I need to do my chemistry lab, I can get a gold ticket from the chemistry teacher, go do the lab during Royal Hour.
And is this modified schedule you're gonna start with right away, Joel, or this is if we go into hybrid?
No, this is the starting.
Okay.
Yep, so it'll be the block. So when you get to the hybrid then, all you're doing is taking one section of those days away. So then, middle school go Monday, Tuesday, high school go Thursday, Friday, in the block.
So just go A, B, A, B, A, B. Okay, like that.
Yep.
Are we gonna put what day it is on the website?
That's what we say.
Because that's gonna be the consternation in the Happy household.
Yeah, I actually have the school calendar on my presentation.
Yeah.
Okay. So if anyone goes to my presentation, my last slide has the school calendar with the AB days.
And then the other thing was someone had asked me, I think after last night, to make sure families are on the same.
Oh, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You'll see that. I got that on the slide.
If we would go to hybrid.
Yeah.
So, or this, if we go to hybrid and
We go to
we're
hybrid.
not, everybody's not here every day in full, to make sure that,
Yeah.
all of Ellie's kids are all, are going on the same day, not that.
We need to, we'll go to that when we get there. Does that make sense? We're just in what this looks like.
Yep.
So not to confuse. Yeah.
So I think the 90-minute class period will work with shop classes and art classes, but how's like a math class? That's a long time to sit there and learn math.
Your brain's gonna melt.
Yeah.
When I started a long time ago here as a teacher, I was a social studies teacher, and they told me, that social studies teachers weren't supposed to like the block. And so it required to do some different planning. It required, I actually really enjoyed it because I could dive deeper into things and work with students. You are going to probably have a chance to dig a little deeper and have more explanation time and probably cover topics a little more in depth, or there would be a possibility in a 90-minute block that I'd take the first hour and close out something that we had been working on, and the next half hour we're moving on to something new. And so there'll be a flow to it. I think students were much more relaxed in the block with having switching classes only 4 times a day as opposed to 7. We really like that aspect of it. But teachers will have to change a little bit their teaching model to keep you guys engaged and keep you attentive and engaged in the class.
And not only that, but the 90 minutes does allow some time to get out. Matter of fact, one of the things that Joel has talked about is take the class outside on a nice day. We've got plenty of space over here. Unfortunately, Phil doesn't have as much space over where he is to do that. I was a principal in a block class, and we had some teachers that really were good at, they give you pieces and you'd start working on it, and everyone would work on their groups split up. The next thing you knew, they had to talk again, but they were going around checking with everyone. It's just on your style of teaching.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
I did some teaching at the college level, and I hated the hour-long classes. Because inevitably, the first 15 minutes were spent catching up where we were at last time. When we had 3-hour classes, got started, got through the material in those 3 hours. And yeah, we took a break too. So it does actually can work out really well for getting that rhythm going. Because every time, it's even like in my work now. I start a project, and then I got to switch to another project, and I come back to the first project. I lose a lot of efficiency. But if I can keep working on it, I can get it done half the time. So that does play well with learning as well.
Go ahead, Ellen.
So I totally agree, because I said that right away. I thought 90 minutes is a long time for math, social, science, those classes. I mean, let's be honest, most kids don't. They love art for 90 minutes, whatever. So my concern is, and I understand the whole take them outside for a break, but we have odd periods and even periods. So, okay, so you take 10 minutes, to round your class up, settle them down. Then you do your lesson for however long. Then we're going to go outside. Well, my only concern is that with that is some of that 90 minutes, when they're only getting, they're not getting their full schedule every day. I guess what I'm trying to say is I want to be sure that these kids are getting all they need in, yes, their class time is longer, but I also don't want to see kids just hanging out outside and not learning when they're only getting those classes.
Well, I think that an expectation, I'm sure, from both principals, I would hope, would be get through the same amount, whether it's this block scheduling or 7 periods. At the end of the year, you should be at the same spot.
Well, right.
You know what I mean? So the same amount.
You still have to prioritize the curriculum and make some selections, but I mean, in terms of minutes, whether you have the class 45 minutes a day or you have it 90 every other day, you're still getting the same amount of minutes in class.
As long as you can, so you're spending, say 10 minutes outside, well then is it going to take another 10 minutes to get the kids back on their class, at the beginning? It's obviously something.
The outside stuff right now would be simply is that there are other aspects of their lives in school that aren't available to them, like sports and activities, or some of the, like the gym availability after lunches and things like that might be cut down. I don't envision that every single day I'm going to take my first period class outside. But it might be, hey, on Friday morning, we really hammered through this week. We're going to do a lap around the football field, and then we're going to come back in and finish this up. That's the kind of idea of just getting a breath of fresh air.
There's ways to get outside too, and to still be teaching. I mean, just think of myself as the grade level I teach with 4th grade. We cover area and perimeter, for instance. Go outside and we can use all kinds of things to find area and perimeter of, if the football field is painted in the area of the end zone. We can be doing learning outside, that we did the work in the classroom. We go outside and we're doing some of the hands-on things and being outside, not just go outside and be outside. We can do it that way too. And remember, teachers were supposed to be really good at it. We're supposed to be experts at it. Most of us are at differentiation. And so it's finding ways to incorporate learning in other spaces. It's also finding ways, we're not doing it elementary, but again, that's just teacher thinking. With that 90-block, system, you have ways to, have more self-directed learning. You're working through the material and you're high flying, and then you've got a really good question. Well, you got time to go and You got time to go and research that, whatever class it is, and then come back to me for help, not just go off and figure it out on your own after class. Do it within class, and then, get groups of that breaking out, and so you've got lots of differentiation possibilities going on that are still working with the core material, and you could have kids essentially working farther ahead, like Joel was saying, get deeper, because you have that flexibility of time.
You notice as a teacher and as a principal in both systems, that my students seemed more relaxed in the law. It's that it wasn't, by the time you go through 7, it gets the end of the day and pile. By the end of the day, they're wiped where you only focus on 4. Maybe the student will, on a odd day, they have 3. And they have a chance to work in the middle of it. They make it, it gives them a chance to, in that 45 minutes, the teacher's going to go. By the time you get attendance done, you get into the lesson, and you get some work done. The kid who may struggle a little bit in school never does find those extra minutes to be able to talk and process and talk to the teacher. They're not in the next class right away. So in that 90-minute, that's a real nice feature of that is that it does slow it down slow the time down or give a little more time for those students who struggle.
Randy?
Okay, so I just want everybody, this is parents, students, teachers, everybody's got to realize we've never done this before, been out of school this long. So I'm urging the students to be able to go and talk to the teachers on what's working, and the teachers to be receptive to them, because we're all learning in this. So I would think the upperclassmen could have some really good points to help the teachers, and you guys should be empowered to tell them what you're thinking is going on. If it's not working, it's up to you upperclassmen to say, hey, this isn't working. So it's just, everybody's got to just be a little bit more responsible than what we used to be, that's all. So.
Well, and part of this, one of the biggest cries that they got in the surveys they took with Wisconsin and Minnesota, and that was a number of different people worked with it, was the number one thing needed is to build relationships. And that's one thing that was recommended to the principals. I gave a couple articles on the block schedule. I knew that the high school was already in it, and Phil's always in it. That some people see that, but some of the things that I've seen done as a principal, I never taught the block. But for example, they would take a walk outside, and unrelated to being outside, they might give them a piece of material to have a discussion in. So when they have that piece of material, they say, hey, we're going to go walk around the school once, and we're going to discuss this. And when you come back, we're going to ask you for a question. And so the teacher walked with them and say, hey, how are you coming? And ask questions as you're walking around. And you literally walk and talk. And there's some research as to how that does help relax you as well. And as a biologist, anytime I could, I would be outside in my classes. Great discussion on this. Anything else?
Joel, you got to speak up.
I heard that. Speak up.
First time for everything.
Yeah, I'm not kidding.
And I would say that to anybody here. We got some other ones here. Okay, he said that the blocks can be beneficial to slower learners. It gives them time to get in class. Okay. Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Next slide, please. Phil, do you want to explain this a little bit? I added the word pod for a reason.
Is that we will work, limit the students mixing too much with other students. So, for example, they'll eat breakfast in their room, their own classroom, they'll eat lunch in their own classroom. If there's any group in the cafeteria, we can only have 36 students safely at a time in the cafeteria. So, for some classes, we could rotate actually kind of a word day where you eat in the cafeteria. And we will go out, after talking to other schools and see how they're handling recess, we'll go up to recess by grade levels, keep the grade levels separated. And we go to we have specials, art, gym, music, so forth, they'll stay in their cohort. So we're just going to try to avoid as much mixing as possible to cut down opportunities for spreading. And maybe start out real strict. Move on, maybe we'll find some creative ways where we can safely connect. Yeah, but we want to start out more strict with things, start slowly, and then we'll see where we can be creative, especially going outside. Like we have reading buddies where older kids will come and do a project with younger kids. So maybe that's something instead of doing in a classroom, we can go outside and set it out. We also have Don Hofstad's son for his scout project is selected to build an outdoor classroom. So we're hoping, we're going to have to hurry, but if they can get it done before the school year, we'd actually have a classroom set up with benches and a place for the teacher where the kids in classes can go out as long as the weather's good and do some work. So in the fall, we'll have gym outside, music. If they're going to sing, they're going to have to go outside, those kinds of accommodations. So good till winter hits, I think. Just figure out how to best warm if we can go outside.
Scott? And I think this has been addressed now, but it will be hot meals when school's in session, correct? Okay.
Just had to see if there was something else to do. Next one, please. That one I had blocked out, so because we changed that. That one too I had blocked out. Sorry, folks. Little breakdown when we convert to Zoom. This is one thing that we talked a little bit with Phil on. If possible, Phil is trying to figure out, and if he seemed a little sketchy last night, it's because he's trying to work out a schedule where minimum we can keep K through 3 together. So they're even in a hybrid situation, they'd be able to meet together. There's enough space, and that he's working very hard to figure out different ways to do that. But I think probably the way it's looking, Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, 4th and 5th grade, that's going to be pretty tough to do.
Yeah, especially the younger children have a harder time with distance learning. And if we can find a way to use the space we have and spread the kids out, so instead of a 3-section first grade, do a 4-section, use some parent support or other staff members to keep school in and work as a 4 team rather than a 3 team. I've been checking what other schools are doing, and it's mostly trying to do kindergarten, grade 1. If you move that concept up, it's having the space for people to do it, but we think maybe having some of our, we have some pretty capable parents, and if they work as a team, give some direction, the team might go do that.
And then your specials will play a role in that also, which is out there as well. So I think, what he's doing, I feel like kindergartners up to grade 3, it's very important. And grade 3 is the landmark. We know that. That's why they asked everyone to read at level by age 3. That's kind of the landmark. And then things are developed pretty good in your brain by then. Not everyone's the same, we know that. Next one, please. Secondary hybrid, I'll let him talk. Now we're getting into the part that Ellie was talking about. And here the schedule runs a little different, which makes it harder. Instead of repeating the course every day and bringing only half the students in, Joel's got a different way to do that. And it's not different, it's a good way. Go ahead, Joel, explain it, would you please?
So the secondary hybrid plan is on Monday and Tuesday, middle school would be in person, and high school would be distance learning. And then on Thursday, Friday would be the opposite. The high school 9 through 12 will be in person, and the middle school will be distance learning on those days. So there could be the possibility, the difficulty of keeping families together. If you have a 7th grader and a 10th grader, it's not likely that they're going to be able to go to school on the same days. The problem with doing it that way, and the schools that are doing it that way, where they're going A through M one day and they're going N through Z the next day, is you're in there. Monday is an exact Tuesday is an exact repeat of Monday, and now you are cutting your curriculum in half. They're only getting half because you have to teach it twice because the other group didn't get it. And so this allows us, our middle school and high schools are almost very even in terms of numbers. It's about 250, 260 per group. And so when we split it middle school and high school, we can cut our load, our building load down to 50%. We have alternative classrooms set up for the sections that are a little bit bigger, but you also have open rooms throughout the building because you have your middle school teachers on Thursday, Friday don't have kids in the building at that time. And so that is the secondary hybrid, the plan for that.
And if I can add to help out, I think probably the biggest problem is what about those families that has the student in the secondary and students in the elementary? Those we can line up if there's a grade that isn't meeting that day. That would be an easy thing. If at the elementary you're flip-flopping your classes. Isn't that your plan, Phil, to flip-flop them on a hybrid? If on a grade level we cannot do all at once? So one day it'd be distance learning, and the next day it would be in-person learning. And what we can easily do is find the siblings, and we'll do that because we plan on meeting in person to start. But we can make sure the siblings are on the same rotation, and the rotation would occur in the elementary. Russ?
Susan has a question.
Susan has
Oh.
a chat question.
The family choose the option as plan A for their child.
Go to meeting.
You can start like this right now. That's what the question is. Instead of doing the block system, doing it this way, that's what they're asking.
There is the hybrid plan is they can choose between the mode that we're in, but all families have distance learning that they can choose to go to from the start.
But you can't choose hybrid.
No,
Instead of
the hybrid is
the block system.
right.
That's a word decision.
I think I have I think I understand what she's saying. And I think what she's saying, in other words, can they flip-flop the blocks? And the answer would be no, because one set of blocks, correct me if I'm wrong, is for senior high.
Yes.
And the second set of blocks is for middle school. So one of the A's will be senior.
Monday, Tuesday is day A and day B middle school, and then Thursday and Friday is day A and B high school.
Just wondering if a family could choose to send their children to school Monday and Tuesday, distance learning, the following 3 days, instead of making the choice of all in or all distance.
No, we cannot do that.
We can't be everything.
And it plays it great with supplies, attendance, lunch, busing, all of those things. That inconsistency with 540 students or 1,000 students across the district, it'd be a nightmare to try to keep track of who's doing what and who to expect on Thursday and where they are at. It would be very difficult to have that.
And then you'd have teachers teaching all three models at the same time. Which, two models already seems, but teaching all three models at once seems like impossible.
I wish there was a way to do it without increasing the size of our school and increasing the size of our staff. That would be a nice way to go. And I would say, in your case, give Joel a call. He won't be available tomorrow, but next week sometime. or drop them a note to make contact with you, to have a further conversation to make sure we've got that right. Any other questions? So you would be going AB one day with the senior high, a day off, no, wrong term, a day of distance learning, a day that the students aren't here at all, deep clean, everything else. Then we're switching the protocol, and the next AB would be for the middle school, while the senior high is doing distance.
Middle school's first and then high school.
Okay, I'm sorry. There we go. All right, the next one, please. This is, I go back to what Ellie's question was. This is where I think it'd be an easy one to coordinate. So let's say you have, if Phil doesn't have everybody in school, which is very likely he'll have everybody in school longer than anybody else, okay, because the elementary comes along later on. But let's say they're in hybrid, the secondary is in hybrid, then what you would do is you'd say, here's your siblings that are going to be here on Monday, so the elementary school siblings that are going to be here on Monday, they'll be here on the same day, and they'll be home on the same day. Then, let's say you've got opposite end, if they're going to be here on the other 2 days a week, so Thursday, Friday, you make sure their siblings, if they're in high school, would be here, or in the middle school would be with them at home. Does that make sense?
I think it sounds easy. I'm not so sure that it is going to be easy, but I'm glad you guys can figure that out.
Well, to me, I'm kind of a math guy. I think it works out pretty good, especially if we start here and we can understand who the siblings are. The hard part is when the elementary is in person and the secondary is in hybrid, which will happen. And that's that's the part where the secondary has to go out sooner than the elementary.
Computer guy says that's just a simple program.
Okay, as a matter of fact, he offered to write a program.
John, I mean, if I could add to that, I mean, designing these and putting these things, these schedules together, I'm also a parent. I'm affected in all three ways: 3rd, 5th, and 8th. And I just don't think there's just not a perfect answer for every family and every family situation. And so the plans that are put together are the best of our goal is to provide academic opportunities for our students. And so, I mean, the goal and the intent in the design is to make sure that happens, knowing full well that the plan isn't going to be perfect for everyone. There is going to be a day where I fully expect that I'm going to be wondering, what am I going to do with my 5th grader? My 3rd grader is still in school, and my 8th grader is in school on his in-person day, and I have a 5th grader that's not in school. And so what am I going to do as a parent with that? And right now, I got to be honest, I don't have an answer for it, but it's something that, we're going to have to cross, and it's not ideal, and it's very different than what traditional school was. You get on the bus and you don't worry about them from Monday through Friday. You have, it's all scheduled, but it's going to be different for everybody. People have to be prepared that those situations are going to come up. And we've tried to do the best we can to make sure that we keep it as uniform and as close as we can to a schedule that they can rely on.
And I said this before, and Randy brought it up. We're going to be wrong sometimes. We have to understand we're going to have to be flexible and adjust what we're doing, but we have to have a starting point. We have to have a plan to transition from one kind to another kind. And that's what this is all about. Next slide, please. And this is the last slide. So it's school nutrition.
Sorry. I wasn't understanding that I was talking tonight, but I'll do a quick synopsis. of what school nutrition is gonna look like in this school year. In our in-person learning, we will be offering hot lunch to every child. There will be social distancing in place for all lunches, but we will be providing it. The elementary is gonna look just a little bit different than the middle school, high school, because they will be eating in their classrooms. So that will be more, it will be a hot lunch, but it will be bagged and closed for less spills and less contamination. So that's what that's going to look like in the elementary, and a minimal option. We'll probably have one hot and a sandwich.
No, I think the last time we talked about that, yeah, we couldn't bring the food to the kids because we didn't have the necessary equipment.
That is correct.
And they told you, don't waste your time trying to buy it either, right?
That is correct. I've spent countless hours on conference calls and meetings with USDA and MD Nutritional. We are now we have replaced our summer food program. When we first went into distance learning in March, the state recognized that we were going to run into some issues with being able to do lunches and transporting lunches. So every district in the state got a waiver to provide bag lunches under a summer food program. They're not allowing this to start the year. This year we are on the claiming regular food school lunch program. So with all this, we don't have the capacity to be remote with our food because we don't have the proper equipment. It's very expensive. So if you didn't have it, the state was MD, Minnesota Department of Education, and USDA was saying don't purchase it because it's very expensive, and there has to be a workaround, and we did. We have a workaround. We will be serving from our kitchens right here, and at elementary, each grade is going to be coming to get their food, and then going to either their classroom or their place that they're going to eat it. There are designated spots in the middle school, high school that will be social distance, and there will also be places in the elementary, which I assume we did talk about classrooms, correct? Okay. So we are starting hot lunch. Breakfast is going to look more like a grab and go for convenience and for the parameter of the elementary has to eat in the classroom. There's not enough space in the elementary for them to go somewhere in social distance. So hybrid is the same scenario as in person. The distance learners in a hybrid, we will have pickup sites because we still have to, if we're going to offer a claimed lunch, a reimbursable lunch through MDE, we can't deliver it. So we will have a pickup site probably at the door where people that are distance learning, if they choose to, can come and grab a hot lunch in a bag. All our meals are going to be in individually wrapped containers. There will no longer be offer versus serve for this year. That means the students will not have a choice of what they get in their lunch. It will be served to them. There will no longer, for this year, be a salad bar and an option to serve yourself. So there's going to be some changes, and that's bound to happen with trying to keep everything contaminated free and social distancing, sanitation. So the hybrid does look a lot like the in-person, except for the pickup site for anybody who's distance learning on those hybrid days. Distance learning will be all grab and go. The difference between last spring and this year is we delivered all the food last year because we were, obviously I spoke about that waiver we had for the summer food program. We no longer have that waiver. So we will have to have pickup sites. So families, if we go into this, don't blink, it could change. USDA and MD come back and say, we're going to honor the summer food program again, but nothing's been written in stone. So it's very fluid right now. Right now, we're going to go with what's in person because that's how we're hopefully starting. That's what it is appearing to be. We're hybrid, so we are going to be serving hot meals. The middle school, high school will have the same options, the two options, and it's going to look a little different just because, the state recommended not to have like bulk. Sometimes we can hot dishes and stuff, but they really want everything individualized. So I just want all parents to understand that, and I'm hoping we can get the word out. It may look a little different this year. To be patient, this is one of these years that we're just gonna have to be patient and work through it and know that hopefully the following years things go back to a type of normal that we're used to seeing in the past. So everything is fluid, let's be adjustable, let's be very understanding on the process. I'm not sure if I think I touched on it. Distance is grab and go. It'll be a pickup site unless we get another waiver from USDA. Right now they're saying no, but things could change. So.
Do you have an idea, at some point, do you have an idea where you can give an example of what the lunches will be or could be?
Yes, we have I go on Monday, and we're gonna post the menu on Monday on the website. I'm sorry.
That's good, that's it.
We're gonna be doing hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken strips. We're gonna be doing like mashed potatoes with turkey gravy, those things, but just know it's gonna be served in individual containers. The premise is still the same. If you want a second lunch, you're entitled to that. You just pay for it. So, the food, that part's not gonna change. It's just some of the options will change. No soup this year. There will be pizzas. I think a lot of things you kids like, we will be serving. Yeah, I think it'll be great. So just be patient with everything. This is a year that we're gonna have to have a lot of patience and understanding and know that hopefully it will change. Are there any questions?
Just thank you for finding a way to make hot lunch happen. That's one thing when I saw, I was kind of like, oh.
No.
I'm glad we found a way.
Even with the grab and go, even like on the hybrid level, whatever our second option is for lunch, like there'll be a corn dog. We're gonna wrap, it's gonna be individually wrapped. That child can take it home and heat it up in a microwave. We're gonna have pizza. Yeah, it might be pizza cold when it gets there, but things that can be reheated. We'll have reheated foods. It's not always gonna be a sandwich. I know last spring we had a shortage. And this was statewide. We had hardly any options to serve. So I appreciate everyone's patience on that because I'm sure that was getting a little tiring seeing ham sandwich and turkey sandwiches. But
yeah, there was no criticism on what was provided. It was nice to see that you're able to.
Yeah, and we're going to continue that. Like I said, it is very fluid right now. It could change. We could be delivering to sites again. Until I get more direction from the state, don't blink.
So is that USDA, that's
the
the Fed, right?
Yeah, that's the United States Department of Ed.
So, right, schools in the South have already started.
Yep.
So I would suspect they're not going to change that. Who knows?
No, I think what's going to happen is we're going to go into this national food program just like we do every year. And when the crisis hits home, like right now in the South, it's now, and nothing's happening, it could. But if ours is this winter, they could have a better determination, they may, but right now the South, I know they're going through their struggling time, and I don't know if they've entered into any other waivers. We don't get that information. So yeah, it's a lot of work. Yeah.
So what does breakfast and dinner look like in both schools? Obviously they're not gonna come into school and go on the breakfast line.
What's gonna happen is they're gonna come in by a bus at a time, they'll social distance. They will come off the bus, if they choose breakfast, they're gonna come to this area, social distance, we'll have a bag. All breakfast is gonna be bagged. For both schools, they will grab their breakfast. We have to get their student number. That's why we can't just have bags sitting at, there are more reasons than that, but we can't have them at the doors. We'll get that so we can claim that as a reimbursable meal, and then they will go to their designated cafeteria, gym, wherever Joel and or Phil have designated their spot where they can eat. That's what breakfast will look like. Lunch will be the same thing. Their grade level or whatever level they're at, they will come in at a social distance. They will be served their food. Elementary will be in a bag or in some type of sealed container. High school middle school will be on a disposable tray, an individualized either wrapped or in a container. They will get that, go to the point of sale, and then go to their designated spot. Does that sound like what we talked about? Okay. So the biggest thing that we've come out of this is when you're in the hallway or in lunch, you have to social distance. Wear a mask and social distance. You don't have to wear a mask when you're eating. It can complicate it. So.
Oh, and that's why when they're in the lunchroom eating, the masks are off. They have to maintain that social distance.
The mask will be off, obviously, because you're going to be eating. So we will have some supervision. These are kids, even adults are adults. I have a hard time social distancing. I'm a very sociable person. So kind of hard for me to social distance from people, but so. And I will say, our head cook was Barb Torres. She'll be in on Monday. We do have the menu ready, and we will be posting it on the website either Monday or Tuesday. I may have to put it into a PDF, but we'll have it up on the website Monday, Tuesday. And if anyone has questions, they can give us a call.
I'm not going to hold you to that because you know as well as I know, you could get a phone call tomorrow and you won't be able to do a thing because it'll be frozen into 100 meetings.
Oh my Lord!
You've been there.
I know, but I'm a glass half full type of person. That is the plan.
There we go.
That's the plan. So, any questions? Okay, thanks, guys.
Something I didn't have a chance to put up on a PowerPoint was today in my meeting that we have. Matter of fact, I was in 3 superintendent meetings today. One of them was from the state commissioner in education. But in that meeting, we always have the commissioner, I believe it is, for the Department of Health, Minnesota Department of Health. And she asked me to put out, please understand there's a rumor out there right now that they're going to come in and they're going to make everybody take a test. That's not it. What they're doing it. If you elect not to have your child tested, that's one thing. You can do that. That's what it is. We'll have to follow the protocols, but that's one thing. And you know the risk if you bring them back to class, that's a problem. Yeah. So even if you feel they have it, you don't have to get them tested. The hospital might test them if you bring them in there if they get back. And there's no mandatory part about it. There's still, the parents have the right to take care of that. The committee that I couldn't think of the name of, you remember what I asked you to remember? What? The intervention. I asked somebody to remember the name of it. The intervention, it's not a committee, it's a team. And that's where I have to have one board member, the principals, the nurse is automatically on there, parents is on there. We have to have people from each one of our unions on there to be represented. But that's the group that comes together and does and works out what we're going to do and make that decision to bring to the board. Yes, Randy.
Okay, so I thought of this after we met as a board last week, and I think I know the answer, but I don't know for sure. So this is our plan. We're going to go with this for the year, whether the peacetime emergency is canceled or not. Is that the deal?
Well, not the whole thing, you know, and that would be something the board could act on. You know, let's say the emergency's over, we don't need face masks anymore.
Well, just, I mean, because there's all kinds of things. I mean, just because one person says it's an emergency or doesn't, that, I mean, it's still, we're going to stick with this block scheduling though for the whole year, right? This is our plan. We're just going to stick with it. We're not going to, you know, January 15th comes by and peacetime emergency is gone. Oh, now we're just going to go back to where we were. We're just going to stick with this for the year. This is the plan for the year.
The in-person class is the base.
Yep.
Okay.
The other layers built up.
I thought I knew the answer. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
I really play into consideration for future years if this is a good plan, is it something that can carry forward into the following year? trying to build it as a.
It's years of work getting done in a small area.
And I'll say this as well. One thing that the message was clear from the principals when we first started meeting on this in early June is whatever we do, whatever we start with, we don't want to be changing all the time. That's why if you notice, his plan is just a little different when we go to hybrid. It all changes when we go to distance. And Phil is trying to make that transition, but if we have to, we will, but it'll be a small change, not a huge change if he has to go to hybrid. That was one of the directions they wanted to make because we don't feel it's good to start us up and switch. We'll try to tweak this and we count on people and we count on this committee, all of you on this committee, to bring us things to solve. That'll be the big part on it. And then I would like you to consider also if you want to be on this one committee, because at a drop I have, we could end up meeting. And we'll have backups. So for example, we've got 3 board members on this one. Okay, so let's say Russ is the one that's going to be on the committee to help make that decision. But Russ goes down, he can't meet. So Ellie's number 2. Number 3 is Randy, and that can happen, you know. So that's where things are. I do want to firm this up next week. If you have questions, sit down, think. We'll put this up live tomorrow. I'll send out the PowerPoint from it tomorrow. A lot of it you've seen already, and I'll remove those slides that aren't. I'll just totally remove them and see what we can work out in questions. We changed things based on what we heard a week ago on last Tuesday. We changed things because we want to listen. Other things might come up based on what our 2 principals did last night. They had places where people came in. Little bit, either of them know, they weren't more, that you can only have 100 people in a Zoom meeting. So that made a big difference yesterday too. There's always glitches like starting at 6, but I wanted to get on early. Little did I know it would move me down to 5:30. Any further comments or questions from anybody? Then I want to thank you all. Feel free to contact me. My on Fridays is usually a pretty good day to meet with me because there isn't a lot on my plate. Most things are okay. Friday's Friday. Keep it Friday. You need a day to be able to work on everything you filled your head with this weekend. So, thank you all very much. Have a great night. And that's the end of the meeting.